Okay. We will not be recording when Paul Gray's meeting. And so that will not be available to be, rebroadcast or to picked up. So, if you want to see everything, you'll need to be present at all of the Wednesday nights that we have it. I don't know that we'll be skipping any, maybe around Christmas. And of course, next week we will not be having a meeting. And I said, like in here, in lieu of the evening, the preparation, not preparation for the Passover, just preparation for Thanksgiving. All right, so here we go. Hello to Mo, Ro, Ron, John, Kelly, Lucinda, Sloan, Kathy, Peter, Renee, Ed, Uncle Dave, and our brother from Luxembourg, Paulu. Also, Damon is on the mend and hopefully out of the hospital before Thanksgiving. I'm going to tell you, that guy really always has a great attitude. And he has been through so much physical stuff lately, and in the hospital and out into convalescent homes, back into the hospital because he got COVID. So he's had COVID. His foot is still on the mend, and he said today, he said they're supposed to get some kind of a shoe for him. Who kind of is doing all the chomping there? Is that you, Carl?
That was Bill. I saw him pull back real quick.
Oh, is that him? Is that him making all that racket? Okay.
You can tell I was a teacher.
All right. Somebody's going to tell on you, Bill. Anyway, Damon, like I say, he's been through so much. His foot, is on the mend, but it's still not fully healed, and so they're going to put some kind of stuff on the wound, and then they're going to fix a special shoe for him that's going to allow him to basically walk on his heel and get around, but not to walk on his whole foot. But he'll be, since it's his left foot, he'll be able to drive, and so he's so looking forward to getting out of there and getting home. And hopefully it's going to be before Thanksgiving. So put Damon in your prayers. But again, I want to tell you, he really has a great attitude. And when I call him, he's upbeat. And I mean, he does complain a little bit about it. He said, I came in here and they gave me COVID. So anyway, okay. And I found out something today that y'all probably, some of you may know. PG&E guys were here trimming leaves from around the power pole. And I'm saying, guys, I said, where do you think any fire is going to be coming through here with all of our stuff is already cleaned up? And they told me that it's not that. Why they clean up 10 feet around the poles and up about 8 feet and then 10 feet around is because when the transformers blow, apparently there's a hot blob of metal that it's a lot molten metal drops out of that thing and down onto the ground. And he says it stays within 10 feet, and as long as there's nothing there for it to catch on fire, nothing happens. It just, it'll eventually go out. But he said if you've got leaves, or if you've got things like what we have over there.
Brush.
Well, but not so much brush, little chips, wood chips. Yeah, and then it'll lay there and smolder and can start a fire. So I thought, I said, wow, that's amazing. I had no idea that was what, so they don't have it to keep from setting the pole on fire. It's to keep the stuff that drops out of the transformer onto the ground to keep it from setting everything on fire. So anyway, so well, you guys feel free to do it, do what you want, because our place here is, our whole back acre and the neighbors same way, is all mowed down. It's all kept weed free and so on. So I always thought they were just trying to protect themselves, but it's not. They're trying to protect us. Okay. Okay, so I talked about to sign up for Paul Gray. And
By the way, I just got on. I just got my response.
oh, did you? Just now
Yeah.
came in?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Maybe
Yep.
Paul might be listening. I don't know.
No, but it came on,
uh,
so something didn't connect the first time.
Oh, okay, all right, great. And then anyway, Paul heard or saw something on the emails, and because some of my friends we're not always on the same wavelength politically, and so he said something. He said, "Just heard a great saying regarding politics and God. Is your God big enough to work just as well through either Biden or Trump?" Enjoy tonight, Paul. So, of course, I just chuckled, and that really is a good question. You know, what is God able to do and transcend anybody who is in what we call human power? And my God is. I hope yours is too. Okay, I don't know if I read last week the Steve McVeigh thing that's in that I left in the notes, but I do want to read it because I think it's so important. Steve McVeigh says, "The demands of religion always scream for more. You're never good enough. You never measure up. You always need to try harder to do better. It's exhausting." And that's religion. But grace sees you as you are, created in the divine image, an expression of eternal beauty, loved, accepted, precious, perfectly flawed, and flawlessly perfect. One seamless work of art called human. Be careful choosing which voice you'll listen to, because one will sentence you to a lifetime of hard labor, while the other will nurture, encourage, and lift you up to your full potential. One is the religious rut, the other is the grace walk experience. Okay, so somebody said one time, you know what a rut is? That's a grave with both ends kicked out of it. Okay. If you haven't, this is for me, if you haven't read Animal Farm by George Orwell, you might want to do so. That's my extent of comments on anything political. All right, the pandemic and the related fear of death. I always wonder why, everybody is so afraid of things like the pandemic, and this is maybe not always the reason for everybody, but I think it's because primarily people are afraid of dying, because the one thing you really hear the most about is not really how sick people are, but how many people are dying. And the world is afraid of death. The funny thing about it, most old people, when they get to be my age and older, even if they're well, death does not begin to really seem much of a problem anymore. In matter of fact, and especially if they are sick, death is often welcomed. And this is the thing that I keep seeing out of all this pandemic fear is death. How many people are dying? And of course, we don't want people to die. I don't want my family to die. But I can tell you, I'm not afraid to die. And if the Lord takes me through this COVID-19, bless his heart, I'll be glad to go. Okay. And so I had some things here to say about that. That for most folks, the greatest fear is the fear of death. That is one way to determine if you have achieved maturity through the renewing of your mind. I think that is one of the biggest things that believers can use to check themselves to see where they are in terms of their dependence upon God, and how afraid they are of death. Because here's what Paul says, Philippians 1:21, for me to live is Christ, and to die is gain, profit. So the Apostle Paul, said, hey, take me anytime, Lord, and because it was gain to him. Now, to live was great too. And this is the thing, is we should be, as believers, unafraid to live and unafraid to die, and enjoy life, but look forward to when we go to be with Jesus with even greater joy and greater anticipation. And to me, that is really, if you want to check where you are maturation wise, then see where you are in terms of your fear of life and death. And so anybody have any comments about that? Okay. Another verse here, second Corinthians 13:5. Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith, prove your own selves. And that's what I say, examine. If you examine yourself and say, okay, where am I in maturity? And I think that is one of the ways to do it. Obviously, another way is to check, how you are in loving. Do you love only certain people? Do you love everybody? These are, I think these are the two things that really determine whether a person is mature. Now, when I say mature, that does not mean that we've got everything all down pat and we know everything and we're able to just say, okay, I've arrived, because there's no time that we will ever arrive in terms of the full knowledge of who we are and who God is, because I think it's going to take eternity for God to reveal himself to us as he does little by little or lots by lots. It can be lots and lots, because God is so big that there's just no way we're going to be able to take it all in. And yet each of us has the fullness and the full knowledge of who God is inside of us, because they reside in us. And I think it's a mind blower to think that in you dwells all the knowledge that there is to know. Okay, what do you think about that? Have you ever thought about that? That's what dwells inside of you, inside of everybody. And but one of these days you're going to begin to see more fully when we get on the other side. And that's what I'm looking forward to. And I'm looking forward to the revelation of who he is and of who I am. And, I really want to see myself in the reflection of Jesus, to see that I'm just like he is. And of course, you all are just like he is. If I say anything about myself that is positive in relationship to God, I'm saying the same thing about you, because none of us have a market or a corner on spirituality. None of us have a corner on being better than any other, because we're all the same in Jesus. And that takes away boasting. It takes away pride. It takes away, all of that kind of stuff, and just leaves us in a spot where we can just relax with each other and enjoy each other and love each other, knowing that each of us is equal with each other. Okay, so any questions about that? Comments?
No, but I'd like to make a comment about what you was talking about before on the fear of death and the pandemic that we're going through now. When you was talking about that, I was reminded of something that the Lord laid on my heart when all of this started, and it was something that I had thought about before, but it says caught between two desires. Said my morning prayer is, Dear Lord, take me home that I may see the blessed Savior that died for me, that I might stand face to face in the righteousness given to me by his grace. His finished work of gold refined, dead works destroyed and left behind, I'll stand as proof of my Father's love, of his mercy and faithfulness from above. But let me stay, if I can be, a vessel of use, energized by thee. Magnify yourself through this bit of clay. I surrender my will to you this day. I know you're sufficient for this time and that this life is no longer mine. Your promises protect my earthly stay and my desires sealed for that eternal day, my destiny sealed for that eternal day. In faith rest, I can boldly say, I'm willing to go and I'm willing to stay. For in your Son, I am an heir, whether I'm here or if I'm there. For I am there, although I'm here, raised with him and seated near. What will come to pass is already done, for it was completed in your Son. So that's what I think about the fear of going or the fear of staying. We're caught between two desires.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, it isn't about death. It's about what he has, because he has all knowledge, is going to be the best for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Billy. Yeah, I remember you. I remember that one from a long time ago, and I appreciate that. And that reminds me, sis, why didn't you remind me? You have a poem to read.
Well, no, you asked me to read it.
Yeah.
So read it.
And you said you were going to, right?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Sure, I'll read it. So
Just a sec. Okay, wait a minute. Don't start yet. Go. What were you going to say though?
Well, I was going to say when Bill read that poem last week, the one I had remembered, it had reminded me of the Herb Rausch poem. I told you that it sounded like one that, believe it or not, it's 1976. So how many years ago is that? He wrote it in 76. I probably read it somewhere in the late 70s, or heard him read it maybe.
44 years ago.
Yeah. So do you remember, did you remember it, Bill?
No.
He will.
I don't remember a day before yesterday.
No, but I don't either. I usually don't either.
He will remember it when you read it, sis.
Oh, so you haven't shared it with him yet?
Oh no. I wanted him to enjoy it with all the rest of us.
Well,
yeah.
Are you ready?
Well, just a second. Let me set the ground for it. The person who wrote this poem that Donna's going to read is Bill's father-in-law. And you may have heard us talk about him before, Herb Rausch. He wrote the book, Jesus Loves Me, and was a pastor for many years. And I went back to Ohio originally, thinking that he was going to be my mentor. This was back in 1976. And so I moved back there. But within a few months, he quit pastoring. Okay. And
Mike has that effect.
Yeah. But of course, what I discovered was that I didn't really go back there to be his student or him be my teacher, but I went back there to get my bride, which is Junie. And that's where I met Junie, and where we and she was attending that same church. Bill and Junie knew each other before I knew either one of them. Anyway, this is from Herb Rausch, and Herb was fantastic at teaching Jesus Christ and Him crucified. But this is a poem now Donna's going to read that Herb wrote.
And I have to say, for many years, he because I wasn't going to church, or I know we had meetings at some point, but he was it was his tapes It was all the tapes from the book room, the gospel book room, because I heard them all pretty
Yeah.
much. Okay, it's called The Puzzle. When I was just a little lad and jigsaw puzzles were a fad, my father brought me one from town, and after supper, we sat down, cleared the dishes all away, and I can still hear my father say, "This puzzle isn't hard, you see. The piece is number 23. Now, if you try and with some luck, you'll see the face of Donald Duck. Now, notice how each piece is made, a heart, a diamond, or a spade. Just remember Donald's face and every piece will fall in place." I moved the pieces all around. Then I grinned and gave a shout. "I did it, Pa. Oh, can't you see?" And Donald smiled up at me. Time went by, and every day when I came home from school to play, I tore that puzzle all apart, then joined each diamond, spade, and heart until the last piece slipped in place, and there was Donald's happy face. But boys and puzzles grow, you know, for that was many years ago, and life is more than Donald's face and easy pieces all in place. Life's a puzzle, has 10,000 parts, and none of them are spades and hearts. They never seem to fit just right, nor ever simply black and white. The colored ones are different too. The sky is mostly gray, not blue. The figures are not clearly seen. The grass is seldom very green. Ever moving pieces, always turning parts, struggling with the puzzle, often breaking hearts. Tired and oft discouraged, but surely comes the day I'll get it all together, and with the triumph say, "I did it, Pa. Oh, can't you see? Jesus' face in every piece, just smiling up at me." So once the theme of life is clear, and we sense our Father's presence near, we just remember Jesus' face, and every piece falls into place. You remember it, Bill?
Yes, I do.
You got at least 4 of us crying. I'm sure you all would like to have that, and I will try to remember to put it in the notes and send you a copy. And if I forget, remind me. And
That's all you need to know, right?
yeah, Jesus' face. Okay, thank you very much. And
Well,
those, of course, those things bring back fond memories. And Herb was quite the guy. Okay, any questions about all that? All right. Okay. All right, so anyway, we've talked about the death and so on. And so now the next thing I want to talk about was and give you information on, and it'll be in the notes when tonight when I send them out. And this is that Carl Jones has this info on his website, which you can download or just read from the site. But it's I don't know if I can get it here close. It'll look like that. This has to do with the when he put together a few years ago. He calls it the full restoration of all humanity as a free gift of God's love and grace. But he puts in there the four views of punishment or restoration. One is the view of let me see if I can read it here. Eternal punishment, annihilation, abandonment, or full restoration. And of course, we all believe in full restoration, but you can see all this if you want to, and go to his website. It's called godislovefellowship.org, or is it .com, Carl?
Either one, but I got
Oh.
.com, org, and net.
Okay. All right. So
And a
anyway,
few
it's,
com.
yeah. And it's really good. This is what got him disfellowshipped or disordained out of the church he was in, wasn't it, Carl? This is what the
No.
guy, no? Oh, this
No.
wasn't it? Oh, okay.
No.
I thought it was.
No.
Oh,
No.
okay.
It was just my funny face,
Yeah, right.
which I won't let you
Yeah.
see.
Okay, all right, so you can go check all that out. All right, so now did y'all get your questions answered, or the 20 questions that I had from last week? And so we'd like to have full participation here. So the first question is, did Adam and Eve sin in the garden? Come on. These aren't trick questions, you know. Anybody want to answer that? Did they sin in the garden? I mean, have I been doing this for years and I get no response? What do you guys keep showing up every week for?
Find out who sinned in the garden.
Well, I think.
Well, Mike, we're all stuck at home, and this is the one outing that we get.
Yeah, well, this happened, yeah, but everybody was coming before.
Oh my gosh.
Ouch.
Yeah. Well, it's like I told Paul today, Paul Gray, I say, what was it? Oh. Yeah, well, I forget what I said to him, but I said, I just keep getting dissed by everybody. And I said, but I guess I deserve it. Oh, I was going to say to Mary, you and Greg, I asked Paul whether you both needed to apply for the lesson. And he said, if you're going to use the same computer, no, that's good enough. But if you're going to use different computers, then Greg would need to apply as well.
Yeah, we did that.
Oh, did you both of them do it? Okay, well, all right. Last I had heard, only you had done it. And so,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, okay. All right. So, all right, did Adam and Eve sin in the garden? Anybody answer? Come on, smart Alex, sitting there laughing and grinning. You answer it. Not you, Greg. I'm talking about Bill. There's nobody going to participate in this.
Is it a yes or no question?
It's a yes or no question. Yeah. What do you say?
Did they sin? It's not a trick question?
No. But Junie, she had an answer. What do you answer? She said, yes, they did. Yes, they did. Okay. No, you can talk. You can tell me. And okay. All right. She said yes. All right. My wife got one of them right. All right. So if so, what was their sin?
They ate of the fruit.
Disobedience.
What, Greg?
Disobedience?
No, I don't. They did those things, but was God,
Unbelief?
did God give them a command that was sin or not sin, or did he give them a warning?
Warning.
He gave them a warning, okay? Different than a command, okay? He told them not to eat of the tree because what?
They they would surely die.
If they did, they would surely die. Okay. And that dying, that surely die meant dying, you will die. And he was telling them there's two deaths in that eating of that tree, eating of that fruit. Dying, you will die. That is dying spiritually. You're going to die physically later on. Okay, so that's what that surely died. And the English, the Old English, did not really give a good translation on that. So so what was their sin? If it wasn't disobedience, and of course that's what we're all told. We're told that in religion, that their sin was disobeying God by eating of that tree, eating of the fruit.
I think it was unbelief.
Okay. Okay.
They didn't believe God.
Yeah, that is correct. And of course, I guess that is sin. Okay. But yet the sin was really in hiding. The sin was in separating themselves or trying to separate themselves from God. That never was accomplished, by the way, but that's what they tried to do. So they tried to separate themselves, and so their sin was, yeah, they disobeyed, but they were disobeying a warning, not a command that was resulting in something that God was going to do to them. The problem was the problem was in the tree. And the other problem was that they were not equipped to deal with what they were going to discover from the fruit of the tree. Okay. This is the big difference between what is taught in fundamental and evangelical churches and what the Bible actually says. All right. So this was their big sin, was going and hiding and covering up, trying to cover up not the fact that they ate of the tree, but trying to cover up the nakedness and trying to hide from the God of love. And so the next question is, why were they removed from the garden?
They would needed a tree of life and have eternal life in that state.
That's correct. And you ask the average Christian out there, and he'll say, well, that was punishment. And there's no evidence that it was punishment, that the reason they were removed from the garden. It was because that when the Trinity looked at them and they looked at the tree and then they looked at the garden, they said, if we leave them there, then they will eat of the tree of life. And then they will be stuck in where they are in their thinking forever. Okay. And this would have been a disaster. It's disaster enough that we live 80 years in this flesh, which has still has the tendency to look at things and look at God and want to hide and everything else and believe that God is mean and that we have to hide from him. So and they said, we cannot do this. And therefore the putting them out of the garden was an act of grace. It was grace that put them from the garden, not punishment. And this is one of the big things about religion. Religion is into punishment. God's into punishment. If you don't do right, God's going to punish you. And just the opposite is true. When you do wrong, you punish yourself. Adam and Eve punished themselves by eating of the tree and then causing themselves the mindset that they got from the tree because they did not have the capacity to get past that, to get past their wrong mindset. Their wrong mindset said all of a sudden, uh-oh, now God's going to get us. And we better hide from God because now we're naked and he's not going to like us. And this is how ignorant religion causes us to be, because we get to thinking that God is the bad one. Well, we think we're bad, but God is going to punish us because he can't stand us in our fallen mindset. And yet God is not the one who ever changed. Mankind changed. Our mindset changed. And so therefore we put everything onto God that is bad. And we think, well, obviously we need to be punished now because we failed. But God never talked about that. God never said that he was going to punish. And so God looked at mankind, saw that he had failed, and graced him out of the garden. Did not punish him out of the garden, graced him out of the garden. And in an act of love. And again, religion does not see that. Religion only sees punishment because they failed. But they failed, and that's where grace jumps in. When we fail, what happens? Grace is taken over. And of course, grace took over at the cross 2,000 years ago. And but again, it like to blew my mind the first time when I started reading the Bible and letting God show me the truth of it. Because if you'd asked me this back in 1975, I'd said the same thing. Well, yeah, they were punished, but no, they weren't. This was grace. And God has always dealt with mankind in love and grace. All right. Why was Cain's offering not accepted?
It was the works of his hands. It was the works of his hands.
Okay, yeah, okay, I got that. I think that's only partly it.
It wasn't what God asked for.
Yeah, I don't know that I don't remember if it ever says that God actually asked for any kind of a sacrifice.
Well, how did Abel know the right kind to do? I mean, he raised
Good question.
animals.
Yeah, good question. And but we can get to Abraham a little bit later. But in this case, in Cain, we just know that they must have made sacrifices. But Abel's was accepted. Cain's was not. And as Bill said, it had to do with Cain's offering something that was the work of his hands. And so this has to do with arrogance. And arrogance, of course, is I think the key component to our flesh and what makes us do all the things wrongly in our flesh that we do, and that's arrogance. And so Cain is saying, I've done this, and this with all the work of my hands should be acceptable to God, but God did not accept it. And but he didn't accept it, not because that was the works of his hands, but because of his arrogance that says, this is what I'm going to offer you. I'm going to offer you the work of my hands, what I've done, and he was proud of what he had done. And instead of accepting like Abel, which is an animal sacrifice. And so I think that's the main thing there.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Mary had a good question there. How did Abel know what it was that he wanted? to offer, opposed to what Cain had to offer. But if you think back on it, what was the offering that Adam saw? The offering he saw was when the Lord offered the sacrifice of the animals and clothed him with the skins of those animals. And so Abel saw that there was nothing that he could do. It had to be the sacrifice of something else in order to produce that, which is what he did. So really that came down from his father, and Cain saying, I can offer as good a sacrifice as what's been offered right there if I offer the fruit of my works and the things that I do. And God rejected that, just like he rejected the covering that Adam and Eve placed on themselves in the garden when they clothed themselves in the leaves. And he said, that's not appropriate. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not covering your sin because I made you naked. But he said, this is what it will require, with Jesus in mind.
Yeah. Well, and of course, the other thing with Adam and Eve, that they were not even happy with their own covering. Adam and Eve, if they had been happy with their covering and thought that God would have been happy with it, they wouldn't have hid. But they went and hid. And so what that tells us that they knew their covering was not adequate. Instinctively, they might have not have thought about it, but instinctively they knew that it was not adequate. And so
But God clothed them with the skins as they left the garden.
yeah, well, I think beforehand, but
I mean,
yeah. But now, and of course, back to what Bill said, I have questioned this in my mind, and I know it sounds like, since he made them clothing of skins, that there was an animal that would probably died because of it, but Bible doesn't tell us that. And
it said God did it though.
huh?
Doesn't it say God provided it?
Yeah, God provided the clothing of skins. Yeah. Now, obviously, God could just make a clothing of skins, and but nowhere does it say that he actually killed any animals to do that. And so we just assume that he did.
Well, I think that would be the first substitutionary atonement, was in the garden. That was a foreshadowing of what was going to happen.
That's what I thought. It was foreshadowing.
Given, and that's what he told Eve, and that there's going to be a fullness of this that's going to happen later on.
Mm-hmm.
But the fullness of that thing that was something else was offered, a life that had blood in it, because there was no offering without the blood, to me. And I got another question. You shouldn't even ask me to ask the question.
Yeah,
that's great. When were they first alienated in their minds? Adam and Eve. We say that we're trying to figure out what it was that was caused them to do what they did. But when they talked to Satan and he said, God didn't really say this. So she questioned what was said. And then she went ahead and ate of the fruit. Was she alienated in her mind before she ate of the fruit? And all of that was a result of being alienated in her mind?
Wow.
It's a good question, and I don't have the answer to that, and I don't think there is an answer that we know. I mean, we can speculate. The thing was that her mind was not opened until Adam ate, and then their minds were both opened, and so of course, to me, I think
Adam was the only one that was told not to eat it.
Yeah, but she knew. Yeah.
Well, she knew because Adam told her, but Adam was the only one that had the commandment.
Correct. Yeah, but no, that's a really very good question. In my mind, I think they were not alienated. They certainly questioned God at that point, but I don't think they were alienated yet in their minds, because they didn't go and hide, and they didn't realize they were naked until they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so for that fruit, apparently contained whatever it is that's in all of our minds today that causes us to be in our flesh and be fleshly minded. And I think it's a
So
result.
when I look at that, Mike, I look at that as that today, when we're alienated in our minds, sin is a result of being alienated in our mind. That's what Paul said.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Well, so their sin that they had, wouldn't it had to come from being alienated in their minds? That they was alienated in their minds, and then they went and ate of the apple, and they went and or the fruit or whatever it was, and then went and hid themselves. But that was a result of them being alienated from their mind. And I was just wondering when that took place with Adam and Eve or with Adam.
Well, if that's the case, then I don't think there was anything that would be genetically from them to us without the tree, without the fruit of the tree. And because they thought it, and it says their minds weren't open, and their attitude and stuff didn't change until they ate. So that's where I'm on that.
As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Yeah,
So if they even thought that before they ever did the deed, you don't even have to do the deed.
But they didn't see things as good or evil until they ate of the tree, right?
right.
No, they wasn't aware of it. They wasn't
Yeah.
aware.
Where?
Right. Yeah.
But in order to do that, they would have to be, to me, they would have to be alienated in their minds before they would even think to do that. Because when they were walking with him in the cool of the day, you don't hear them talking about any of that. It was only after they had their conversation with Satan that made all these statements, which was against the Father, which it still is, but I mean, that was against the Father, that they all of a sudden then decided that they was going to do what he had told them not to do in the beginning. So,
Yeah. Well, again, that's speculation. We don't know one way or the other. I tend to think they didn't have the alienation did not occur until they ate, and they ate of the fruit, and whatever that was, and we don't know what it is. That's going to be one of those questions we're going to get answered when we get there. And but anyhow, all right, we'll go on. So, okay, we actually said what Cain's sin was arrogance, and not the fact that he made an offering that wasn't accepted. His offering was not accepted, but because of his arrogance. And so his sin occurred actually before his offering was not accepted. And then, of course, he compounded it by killing his brother. All right, what is salvation?
what is what?
What is salvation? Got a big
What
grin on your
Jesus
face over there, dear.
What Jesus did at the cross, gave his life for us.
Okay. Which is true. that was the act of it. Yes.
And reconciled us to God.
Yep. Reconciliation. Yep. All of that. And of course, actually, salvation is really simply deliverance. Now, not like the movie Deliverance, but anyway, yeah. Salvation is being delivered from one thing to another. And salvation, if you're saved from the drowning, you're saved from the water, you're saved from drowning, you're actually saved from death unto life. And that's, I think, simply the thing of what salvation is, being delivered from death unto life. So what are we saved from? Now, I said death, but what is that death? Well, I think we are saved from us. I think we've been saved from ourselves. We've been saved from, yes, death unto life, but what is death? That's us. If Adam was told, dying you will die, and then dying spiritually, you're going to die physically. And of course, the dying spiritually was taken care of, and so was dying physically. But we're still going to die physically, and it goes back to the first part of the fellowship today is, what are we afraid of? Have we, if one has been taken care of, has the other one been taken care of? If we have already passed from death unto life,
Why are we still afraid?
yeah,
Well, we don't believe we're really loved then.
yeah, I think that's the case. We believe we're loved. We don't believe we're saved. We, for some reason, and I know, and of course, Donna, you and I, and I think most everybody else here too, was at one time believed, you had to believe in order to believe. And so my question is, how much do you have to believe? What do you have to believe? And of course, that varies from church to church, from denomination to denomination. And nobody really has an answer for that. How much do you have to believe, if you have to believe, in order to be saved? And if we believe that salvation comes one at a time, somewhere down the road, following the cross, what does that do with the verse what Paul says, we crucify Christ afresh? If we think that we're saved individually, one at a time, and by our belief, is that not crucifying Christ afresh every time? I think so. And Paul says, I don't think we want to do that. And now what's going to happen to us if we do? Nothing.
And
We're already saved. We've already been forgiven from. If that's what we believe, we've already been forgiven for that stupid belief, right? And so we can't lose for winning. Think about that. We cannot lose for winning because we've already won. And
it's a
so
win-win all the way around.
it's a win-win all the way around. That's why. And that's why we should not be afraid of living, and neither should we be afraid of dying. All right. So aren't we saved from ourselves? How are we saved? Or were, or were we saved?
How?
Yeah. Did you do anything to get saved?
Nope.
No? Okay. So how were you saved?
Well, you mentioned before there's all different kinds of salvations.
Yeah, but how did you pass from death unto life?
By grace,
By grace. When?
before the foundation of the world.
That's actually the correct. But in terms of time that we are, because there's both. Before the foundation of the world, in God's mind, it was already an accomplished fact. And that's, that's a hard thing for people to get into their heads, that it was already done before the foundation of the world. And Christ was crucified before the foundation of the world, all in God's mind. Now, God did not make it all happen, but God determined that what man was going to do was going to happen. And so when God knew that mankind was going to kill Jesus on the cross, he decreed that that's what it would be. And therefore it was going to happen. It could not happen. And, but he didn't determine that it was going to happen. He just determined that they weren't going to change their minds. So, the decrees are one thing. They're kind of a hard thing to understand, but they're hard to get into our minds. But anyway, we determined that we were going to kill Jesus, And so that was 2,000 years ago. And that's when your salvation, my salvation, everyone's salvation actually occurred in time. But as Bill said, in God's mind, it was before the foundation of the world. And that's so awesome. I mean, that when you know and understand that, you know it's a done deal. And you know that whatever's going to happen to you in time is, well, it's going to happen, but at the end of your time, you're going to be face to face with Jesus.
Mhm.
And that's the day that I'm having a hard time waiting on. Okay. What is sanctification? Donna can tell you what we were told in back in our Nazarene days.
Well, I was told it was a second work of grace, whatever that means, but it also, well, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I know that it means you're set apart for a holy, you're set apart
There
for
you go. Yeah,
the holiness, so.
Yeah. yeah. That's what sanctification means to be. It's to be cleansed and set apart for a sacred purpose. And believe it or not, you and I are set apart for a sacred purpose. Anybody know what that sacred purpose is?
To be the light in the world. I don't know.
Well, in time, yeah, that is in time. But in the eternal realm,
Be part of him.
part of him, what part? Bride of Christ.
Ah,
The bride of
wow,
Christ.
yeah.
Married,
yeah.
married to Jesus, and we are going to be, I don't know what all that entails, but I'm excited about it. Okay. All right. But yeah, we were taught that sanctification was a second work of grace, which meant that you get saved first, but you get sanctified by consecrating yourself and telling God that you promise you will never sin again, and so that when you consecrate to Him and say, "You're my all in all," and all that good stuff, and so then God sanctifies you. And of course, Nazarenes didn't believe in speaking in tongues, but your tongues churches, they believe in that same kind of thing, but they believe that it's evidenced by speaking in tongues. And but the Nazarenes and Pilgrim Holiness and Free Methodists all said, that, well, you don't sin anymore. And so I had a hard time staying sanctified.
I was gonna say, I just found out I was a Nazarene because I promised God every day I ain't gonna sin no more.
You what? You don't sin anymore?
I promised God that I'm not gonna
Oh,
sin.
yeah. Yeah, I know better than that. Okay. All right, we're just about done here. What is being born again?
Hmm.
It's a reality of new life in Christ.
Yeah,
Waking up.
yeah, but we were actually born again when Jesus was born again. I don't know if you probably heard other people teach that. I don't know that I ever had heard it taught, but that's what I believe, that when Jesus was born again, we were born again, because Paul says we were crucified with him, we died with him, we were buried with him, we were raised with him, and we're seated with him. And so whatever happened, and of course, remember, Nicodemus went to Jesus by night, and Jesus told him, "You must be born again." And but of course, whatever needed to be done to the human race was done to Jesus. Okay, and so whatever happened to him happened to us. Now, most of us weren't there, in terms of our physical presence, but in the mind of God, we were there. And so he was able to place everybody from Adam all the way to the end of time, the last person born, into Jesus. And we all are, and of course, God has dealt with the whole human race as one being. And this is the thing that's so important to understand. And this is what most fundamentalists and religious people don't understand, was that God did not deal with, and does not deal with individuals in terms of salvation, sanctification, and all this stuff on an individual basis, except that all humanity is considered to be one individual. And when you see that, and then you recognize you don't have to think anymore about how good am I and how good is my neighbor or how bad, you just recognize we're all in one person together. All that happened to Jesus on the cross happened to all of humanity all at one time, because that's just the way God did things. Now, does he deal with us daily on an individual basis? Sure. But as individual parts of the body. And so it's so important that we understand we each of us are parts of the body and all integral parts of the body, but we don't have an independent function outside the body. We function together, and that's it. And so one part is not more important than another. Greg is just as important as Carl and Bill and me and June and Mary, and all of us are joined together. This is the beautiful thing. So when I look at all you folks, I look at you as all parts of me, and I rejoice in that fact, and that I'm not out here by myself, and that none of us are by ourselves. We're all collective into Jesus, and we're all each individually cared for the same by God, way beyond our comprehension. And we're loved by way beyond our comprehension. Whether you're good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't matter in time. What it matters how you enjoy life in time. But you cannot change God's attitude about you. I don't care what you do. You cannot change his attitude about you one iota. You are as loved, and as Tommy says all the time, I'm his favorite. But Tommy's not arrogant when he says that. He knows that he's saying that for all of us, because he knows he's a part of the body, like we all are, just parts of the body, and we're all as important to God as anybody else. This is beautiful, wonderful, and we're beyond time here, so I'm gonna let that go.
I don't agree with all of that.
What?
I said, I don't agree with all of that.
I
believe that we are personal to God, and I believe I was personal to God from the foundation. I believe he had me in mind when he went to the cross, and I believe that I'm individually special to him. I'm not clumped up with a whole bunch of people. I'm an individual. So with that being said, that's just my point of view.
That's okay. I don't disagree with that. Okay. I'm not saying that is not true. Okay. What I'm saying are both are true. God knows every individual part, and he deals with you on an individual basis every day. And yet, as a part of the body of Christ, we're all one.
I agree with that. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Right.
The problem I have with it, if I go back to Psalms, and he knew me before the foundation of the world, he knows everything about me, then that was what he came to get. Yeah. And I go back to my old thing again. When you stick up your thumb, you're the only person in the world that's got that thumbprint. Nobody else has got it. He died for that thumbprint. I know. And
I agree with that. And if you had been listening, you'd
Well, no, I didn't say I disagreed with all that. I just said I disagree with the fact that I'm clumped in. I am unique to my father, and he is unique to me. And he went to the cross for me.
Yeah,
he took my name there.
you're a unique part. I agree
Okay,
with you.
okay.
That's our personal well, is it personal relationship?
Yeah,
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 it is.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and even that scripture that's misinterpreted, work out your own salvation, right, with fear and trembling. That was so misconstrued
Yeah,
to us
Right.
in church.
Yeah.
But each person individually, it's between you and God. And really, by saying that, though, you can't judge other people because in the same way, because with their relationship with God, because that's theirs. And if they're in the dark about it, well,
Yeah. All right.
it's not going to change their salvation.
Yeah. By the way, Mary and Greg, don't ever worry about if you hear Carl or Bill and I arguing. We've been doing this for years. And their problem is they just don't listen.
Well, you're not always clear.
I agree with that. I'm sure I agree with that. Okay, yeah. Anyway,
I'm
all
just
right.
teasing you. We
No,
really
no,
need to,
that's probably true. Okay, and
We
I have
really-
no problem with that. Yeah.
we-
So
I was just joking.
that's the point. If I ever am not clear, please don't hesitate to ask or comment or, disagree or whatever. Okay.
No,
never-
actually,
never a problem.
Bill was disagreeing because you are clear.
All
Hey,
right.
we really need to fly Bill out here and have a cup of coffee with him. We would have a great time, the three of us.
Oh, yeah, I know. I keep waiting for him.
I don't drink coffee with infidels.
Okay, we'll
He
get
keeps-
you a whiskey.
He keeps promising that he's going to come out every year, okay? But I have no other friend who lies to me as much as he does, okay? And I still love him.
And enjoys it as much.
All right, folks. Hey,
Well, it's hard to hold resentments when you get it all out of you.
remember, next week we're not here, and we'll begin Paul Gray the following week. And only those who have signed up are going to be on, and it will not be recorded. So if you have any questions, let me know. All right. Love you all very, very much. Thanks for being here. We'll see you. See you in
Bye
2
all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.